right, thanks for joining us all here today, and can I thank in particular the DFES and DBCA and local government staff for joining us as well here today in Bridgetown. I wanted to come down to Bridgetown to say thank you to all the people who fought the fires over the last few days and have done all the work, both permanent career firefighters, volunteer firefighters, local government people, local farmers, all the volunteers, SES, everyone who's been involved, police. It's just been a magnificent joint effort to deal with what was a very, very dramatic situation. Obviously, these fires here were very threatening to the town of Bridgetown. And very threatening to people's properties and lives. So I'd like to thank all the people who risked their own lives to protect others, and that's just a great demonstration once again of the capacity but also the commitment of people both from the regions and the city who involved themselves in these things. We've also had the same incidents or the same events in Denmark, and I'd like to thank everyone who's done the work in Denmark to preserve Denmark and local properties and lives as well. And at the moment we have fires that are still still threatening in Narrogin and Shackleton. So to all the firefighters and the volunteers out there dealing with the fires, can we pass on our thoughts and our thanks to you at this dramatic time. The fires in Narrogin and Shackleton are contained but not controlled, so people need to follow all of the advice and listen to all of the measures that have been recommended, and make sure you follow the requests of the authorities to save your own life and save people in the community. There's been 1,000 people working on fighting the fires over the course of the last few days across the state. So again, both career and volunteers and SES and DBCA and local farmers and the like. So can I thank all of them for all their work. In terms of other issues, we've had 65 new COVID cases reported in Western Australia overnight. 41 of those were interstate, 11 were local, of which one was unlinked, and 11 were overseas cases. So that's 65 cases we're currently managing. In terms of our vaccination rates, we're at 98.1% first dose. So in effect that means less than 1 in 50 people in Western Australia have now not had their first dose. That's 93.6% double dose and 45.6% third dose in Western Australia. So our vaccination rate continues to climb, and that's a very good sign. But once again, great to be here in Bridgetown. Thank you to everyone who fought the fires.
How would you describe these fires that WA has experienced over this last weekend? DFES said yesterday that they don't remember a time where there was 4 Category 3 fires.
It's very, very dramatic, and I suppose it reflects the weather conditions that we were facing. So very dramatic, but the great thing is so many people came out and fought the fires from all over the state, and their efforts have minimised the loss of property and also resulted in lives being saved. So it's been a terrific effort.
Is there going to be any financial help for those that did lose property? There's over 50 kilometres of fencing that's just been lost in this area.
There's certain relief measures that kick in between the state and Commonwealth. I haven't had any advice on that at this point in time. I'd urge any insurers involved to make sure that they process any claims quickly. We'll obviously get further advice on that.
What immediate support are you offering to Hester residents that can't go back into their house?
So we discussed that at Cabinet yesterday. So Department of Communities and Southwest Development Commission and the Regional Development Department of Regional Development offering community support to people who need it. Most of the advice to people is that if they can, they go and stay with family and friends. But if they need supported accommodation, that is available. I'm advised that some people have taken up that opportunity, but most people go and stay with family at these times, which is understandable.
Is there an update on when these Hester residents can actually go back to their properties?
I'll let DFES answer those questions. There's obviously some issues out there about the plant and the potential sort of toxic issues. I understand that we've got teams of contractors out there sealing that, so it's not a threat to people. So that will be a process that will be gone through over coming days. But in terms of people returning, I'll let the experts provide advice on that.
Premier, WA Police are now investigating 3 large-scale fires, Margaret River, Yelling Up and now here. You concerned that there's something more nefarious at play?
Well, you're always worried about that. You're always worried that someone is doing the wrong thing. But as you can see, people who do that are often caught and charged and sent to jail. So I just urge anyone who thinks about doing those sorts of things, the chances are you'll get caught, and the penalties are very, very severe.
Firefighting aircraft are fairly stretched over 4 different fires. Is there a need to increase funding for firefighting aircraft, particularly the heavy tankers?
Well, we have a national arrangement around the heavy tankers, so they fly across from the eastern states, and we provide support as part of a national deal to fund those sorts of things. I think they've been amazingly effective and incredible assets for fighting fires in Western Australia and used very effectively. The reports I just had from some of the volunteers out there on the fireground was that the large aerial tankers did an amazing job in stopping some of the fires getting to people's properties. So, look, we're part of a national arrangement with these things. I think it actually works pretty well.
The firefighter union has come out this morning saying that there was career firefighters in Perth sitting ready to go that could have been deployed down to the southwest, to the wheat belt and the Great Southern. Do you think more help could have come from Perth?
Well, I think there has been help come from the metro area, and I just met a bunch of people in there who were from Perth who were posted down here to assist with the fires. These are operational decisions by the agency, and they deploy people as required. And I think the evidence is there. They've done a very good job.
Is there any concern for companies like the timber treaters here using that CCA in their product when they're based in a bushfire zone like this?
I haven't had any reports of that. Look, you know, I think we're dealing with the situation. They're sealing the toxic materials and trying to make it as safe as possible for everyone involved. I just urge anyone not to go into the area.
You did a bit of a tour earlier on today. Did you speak to any locals? How are they all going? And what did you see?
I did. Spoke to some of the volunteers out there. They were very upbeat and very positive, and they were deeply committed to preserving their neighbours' properties. A lot of them actually, a lot of the people who live in these areas go and fight the fires and leave their own home. So they're trying to protect other people's properties whilst their own home is under threat. And so, you know, they're very brave and very, community-minded people that they're prepared to do that. You know, imagine leaving your own home and going to save someone else's whilst your own home is under threat. So they're great people.
Climate change is obviously an issue in the increasing intensity and the frequency of fires, and yet WA seems to be pushing right ahead with the gas industry. What measures is the government going to be doing to counteract the millions of tonnes of emissions from that industry?
That's a very big question.
It is.
So we have a net zero by 2050 policy. We'll be launching further aspects of that later this year, or we expect later this year. Obviously, we have a whole range of mitigations that we require the gas industry to put in place, including sequestration, offsets, and the like. And it's changed and is changing enormously over time. So all those things are part of what we're doing, in particular conditions around new projects to require offsets. So that's part of the measures we're putting in place. But you know, climate change more broadly is an international issue, and the Australian government needs to be part of international solutions.
Are you satisfied that the gas industry is actually doing that?
Well, we put in place conditions for new projects in particular. So projects that have been around for a long period of time, and you've got to remember the first projects came on stream many decades ago. They have conditions applied to them, but for new projects that come on stream, we have sequestration arrangements by which they put carbon dioxide underground, or offset arrangements and mitigation arrangements for those new projects, and I'm confident they adhere to the conditions.
Premier, will we take COVID questions?
If you want to ask me so.
This is from my colleagues. Do we want to do DFAs first and then COVID?
Why don't you finish with me, and then I'll get Craig to come forward.
Yeah. So this is from my colleagues in Perth. Why have hospitals been told to stop booking any non-urgent elective surgery cases from Feb 28?
So this is part of the operational decisions of the health department to help manage the growth in cases. And so as cases grow, hospital systems around Australia unwind elective surgeries so you can cope with people going to hospital. Our vaccination rate and our increasing third dose will significantly reduce the health impacts on the West Australian public. But people will still get sick, and so we need to provide capacity in the hospitals for those people who get sick. So winding back some elective surgery, not all, is an important part of making sure our health system has the capacity to deal with people as the case numbers grow.
What kind
Is
of
this in
influx are you
preparation for a
expecting?
border opening in March?
It's in preparation for the growth in cases to ensure that our hospital system is ready for that. It's what every state in Australia has done, and I expect every hospital system around the world has done. You don't just have wards and hospitals sitting empty. What you have is a system that operates with lots of elective surgery, but as you have COVID cases grow, unfortunately, you have to wind back some of that elective surgery to cope with the growth in cases.
What kind of
Exactly
influx are
does
you
your
expecting
modelling
in our
show you
hospitals?
about how many cases?
I'm sorry, there's two questions at once.
What kind of influx are you expecting in our hospitals in the coming weeks?
Well, we don't know exactly, but what we're doing is trying to prepare. So what we didn't want to do was book people in and then cancel them. So what we do is make beds available. If COVID cases aren't there, well then we can book people sort of urgently to go in and get elective surgery done. But we didn't want to have lots of people's surgery cancelled because that obviously is very disappointing for many people. So this is a measure that every hospital system, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland, here, in fact all around the world, they use this to cope with the increase in COVID cases. Sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, sorry. You must have done some modelling to arrive at this February 28 date. How many exactly cases are you expecting to see on February 28?
It's not specific, but the expectation is, as the Chief Health Officer said yesterday, that the case numbers will grow significantly each and every day. So particularly because we already have some community spread, and particularly because we have lots of people coming in, while subject to quarantining, there's still expected to be some breakouts or leakage from that quarantining. So it's just a precautionary measure to make sure our hospital system is ready.
There's just some confusion over when people can leave quarantine, so will those people be advised by the health department when they can leave?
We advised yesterday, and I expect people will get further advice on this. I answered all these questions yesterday, but the rule now will be that after 7 days of quarantining, subject to a negative test, you'll be free to leave quarantine.
There's been a number of schools that, in consequence to the new settings announced yesterday, Penrith in particular, they've cancelled school balls, orchestra, music lessons, things like that. What's your reaction to that? I know that you didn't specifically say that they had to do that.
No, we didn't.
What's your reaction to them doing that?
Look, individual schools will make their own decisions, but it's important that people are prepared for growth in cases. So, look, over east, schools have been, for months, no kids at school in Victoria and New South Wales. So we've watched what's occurred over there. We've told schools what the appropriate measures are here. If schools want to do extra things, that's a personal choice for those schools. We haven't required it.
Do you agree with them cancelling things? Is it getting
It's their own choice.
education?
No, education will continue, but there's some events that they're going to not proceed with. But there's individual choices schools make based upon their circumstances. But we've set out what the requirements are for public schools and what the recommended changes are. If other schools want to do extra things, that's a matter for them.
Do you think there are cases in WA going undetected because people aren't getting tested?
Well, probably. We encourage people to get tested in high numbers. If you've been to an exposure site, if you're showing symptoms, we encourage people to get tested. But the reality is there will be people out there who aren't getting tested who are positive. And that's why we're expanding the provision of rapid antigen tests. That's why our PCR clinics are ramped up. That's why we're encouraging people every day to go and get tested.
Even in your own electorate, there was people waiting 5-6 hours, or reports that that's how long they were waiting to get tested.
Yeah.
Does there need to be more testing clinics opened up?
We have a capacity for PCR tests of 35,000 a day. So that's a big capacity. I'd urge people, if there are lines at a clinic, to go to a different clinic. But we're also going to provide rapid antigen tests to people as an alternative if they are a close contact and they go to a clinic. So these are all measures that will alleviate the pressure on the testing system as we go through this period.
The cafe owner and her daughter were taken into custody last night because they were refusing to certify people's vax status. So that's in the Warwick Cinema Complex. Do you really think they're actually putting people at risk?
Well, there's the law and people need to comply with it. So if people don't comply with the law, obviously they'll be prosecuted. So I just urge everyone to comply with the law.
Yesterday you said that people should keep going to work. Can you please clarify that you don't believe employers should start asking their employees to work from home?
Well, that's an individual choice for employers and employees, but there's no requirement at this point in time, no government requirement for people to work from home. If we get to that point, obviously we'll advise that. But my concern is, your CBDs, your retail outlets and the like will suffer a dramatic drop in trade because people aren't going to work. So at this point in time, there's no requirement. We're not telling people not to go to work.
Have government departments been instructed not to switch to work?
No. Again, as I said, it's individual choices for individual businesses, agencies, whatever it might be, but there's no overarching requirement for people to work from home. So South Australia and other states have been through months of working from home. We are not at that point, so we changed our close contact definitions, our isolation requirements, our period of isolation. That's the existing rule. We're not requiring people to work from home. But when you go to work, if you're indoors, you're required to wear a mask.
Dr. Andy Robertson said he expected case numbers to start doubling every 3 days. Have you had any modelling yet for the WA Omicron peak hospitalisations?
No.
There's tourism operators that are quite upset that over East they'll be getting international travellers. Is there going to be any financial support for the tourism sector here?
We've had the strongest tourism numbers in Western Australia of anywhere in Australia and anywhere in history over the last 2 years because we kept COVID out. When you get large community spread of COVID, it's not good for the tourism industry. So I think people need to be careful what they wish for because lots of cases actually hurts the economy and hurts retail, hurts hospitality, hurts jobs. So look, eventually we'll get to international tourists coming back at some point in the future, but I think we've just got to make sure we get our third dose vaccination levels up because that will actually preserve lives and in the meantime mean that the impact of Omicron on the economy and businesses is reduced.
Do you think WA's change in isolation rules will mean that some business leaders that have considered leaving WA will be able to stay? For example, Richard Boyder?
I don't know. That's a choice for him. But it's 7 days isolation, which is, in the current environment is the right rule for people, but it's a matter for them as to what they want to do.
Will you be doing that 7-day isolation period when you return from New South Wales?
Well, of course.
The truck blaze on the WA-South Australia border yesterday, how did that actually occur and how many vehicles were damaged there?
I've only had preliminary advice. I'm advised that there was 4 trucks that were, I think, destroyed, which is obviously catastrophic for those people and very, very debilitating, no doubt. I'm advised there was a brake issue with one truck, that the brake lining got hot and caused a fire and it spread to the other trucks. I haven't had any further advice than that.
The Road Transport Union was saying that it was exacerbated by the 2-hour wait at the testing point. I mean, why hasn't your government listened to pleas from the union about expanding the site to stop that backlog?
Well, we're doing our best in a COVID environment. The Euclid checkpoint is out in the middle of the desert and it's we've got a whole range of people based there to deal with these issues and other issues as best we can. Look, a brake lining fire is not really something we could have predicted and I just feel for the truckies and the owners of those trucks for what's occurred, but this is one of those things that was hard to predict.
When's WA going to start rolling out the Novavax?
I'm advised the Commonwealth is rolling it out on the 21st of February, and so I would hope we would get it here on that day or shortly thereafter.
That you know of, have there been any recent arrests or charges laid in regards to people breaching vaccine mandates?
I think there was, this young lady here just mentioned the Warwick shop a moment ago.
Just a regional question. So the Geraldton Mayor says that about 80% of the local community there haven't got the Service WA app up and running. Is this disappointing? What's your response to that?
Well, the Service WA app is there to protect people. So it allows for you to prove your vaccination status. It allows for you to use QR codes. It allows for you to use the G2G pass system. It's actually quite an amazing piece of technology. But I do understand for many people it's hard to install, particularly older people and particularly people who aren't good with technology. So I just say to people, there is advice online to help you install it. You can follow that advice. You should seek the help of family or friends who might be more technologically capable. That's what I did. Used my own son to help me set mine up. And I just encourage people to, seek that help if they're having problems.
Just on the decision regarding school camps yesterday saying they'll be cancelled or postponed, we do have a camp in Laroona. They're saying they may have to let go of 20 staff now, and the owners labelled it as unfair, saying that these kids are probably safer in the country than the city. What's your response to this?
Look, these decisions are made on advice, on health advice, and I know it's hard for some businesses. I expect it's very hard. But education will work with those businesses about what can be done. Hopefully these rules are in place for a limited period of time and we can get past these things. But it's all designed to minimise the spread of the virus. If you get massive peaking of the virus, it's very bad for people's health. It's very bad for business. So what they're designed to do is to minimise the peaks so that we can manage our way through what will be a very, very difficult period. Western Australia, for the last 2 years, has largely been COVID-free. Probably the most COVID-free place in the entire world for the last 2 years. The least impact on our community, our economy, our jobs, our health system, people's health of anywhere in the world. We've had one person in Western Australia over the last 2 years acquire the virus here and pass away. And I don't think there's anywhere else in the world that can say that. So, look, the worst is yet to come. We're really at the start of the pandemic for Western Australia. But the good thing is, when it hits here in larger numbers, we're going to have very high levels of vaccination. We'll have watched what's occurred in the eastern states and have rules in place that are based upon their experience to mitigate the impact. We have a hospital system that's well prepared. They're the upsides of being COVID-free for the last 2 years, or virtually COVID-free. Thanks very much. Craig?
Maybe we'll just start with Hester, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the situation out at the timber treaters at the moment?
So as the Premier advised, we're currently in the process of sealing the contaminated ash, and that will be ongoing for the rest of this afternoon as well. We're also starting to commence some testing of the soils around the residents and the properties around Hester as well. So once we get a better idea of the level of contamination, we'll have a better understanding of when we can get those residents returned to their own properties. Notwithstanding, we need to make sure that it's safe for them to return, not only from the contamination perspective, but also to make sure other hazards are eliminated, such as trees, and make sure the roads are suitable for people to return.
How dangerous is that contamination stuff for humans and animals, I guess?
Yeah, we're obviously working with the WER and our own scientific officers within the department to come up with what it actually means to us, and that's ongoing. And hopefully, as I said, once the testing's been analysed and we get further information, we'll have a better understanding of what that means for not only the people returning, but also the health effects potentially on the people in the area.
Do you have any sort of a time frame for that?
I think there's a community meeting, specifically I think for the Hester community this afternoon at 1 o'clock, and that's where they can voice all of their questions, and the incident controller will be there with our hazmat experts in providing that advice.
Would it be weeks though, or days?
I'm not too sure. I wouldn't like to speculate at this point in time.
Will you test every individual property?
We'll do samples, yes, absolutely, I think. Yep.
How many residents are actually out from their properties at the moment there?
Danny, do you know? All of them should be. We've actually asked for a directed evacuation. Now, if people stay, or that they're operating on their own parameters, and they're their own responsibility. So we've actually put the request in for people to remove themselves from that hazardous situation.
Is there a number though of how many?
No, I don't have the number offhand. No, sorry.
Question that we posed to the Premier. Is it true that DFS failed to call back career firefighters around WA to assist at Denmark and Bridgetown?
Absolutely not. Career firefighters were deployed both to Bridgetown and also up to the central wheat belt in support of the Shackleton fire. Also, our State Operations Centre put in significant planning around resourcing requirements for all of the incidents. It was unprecedented that we had 4 level 3 incidents concurrently across the state. Our main resource concerns were really around incident management teams, given we had 4 level 3s. It wasn't around people on the ground, and we had sufficient crews at all fires. And I think the deficiency was around our incident management teams, and we took the proactive measure in bringing across 34 additional personnel, IMT trained and experienced personnel from New South Wales to assist. And notwithstanding, the State Operations Centre put in significant planning, and part of that planning is recalling of career firefighters if required, and it just didn't reach that trigger to do that.
The large water tanker took quite a few hours to get here once the fire broke out in Bridgetown. Was the resources stretched between that particular aircraft between here and Denmark?
No, we just prioritised. Basically, we had 3 large air tankers, and I think we had 16 aircraft operating over Denmark. There was significant numbers of aircraft operating here. It was just prioritising based on the level of risk and assets under threat. So I thought it actually worked really well, and the whole response to the 4 incidents has been outstanding. And as the Premier said, fantastic effort by career and volunteer firefighters, DBCA, and also local bushfire brigade volunteers, and including the farmer response. Magnificent effort in the early stages of these fires.
How far do the planes have to go from, like in this particular situation, how far do the planes have to go to fill up? And would it be of any use if maybe the mines out of Greenbushes had a big, like a deeper pond or something that they could use for filling up?
The large air tankers basically return to Busselton Margaret River Airport to resupply. If they're up in the metropolitan area, we can take them out of PS Air Base. We've also used them out of Kalgoorlie in the last couple of days. The smaller aircraft, they can land on smaller airstrips, obviously, and the heli-taxon, they have the ability to draw out of dams and open water sources as well. So I think we're pretty well covered. We have our air operations is really mature now, and we have obviously all of our water sources completely mapped across the state wherever the fires may pop up. So
it just felt like a very long time. I was watching the fire from just after it started to when it started being hospital safe, and it felt like at least a half an hour turnaround for each of those planes to turn up when just up as the fire was coming up towards town.
Yeah, I don't know the actual time frame, and it always seems to be slow when you're faced with an emergency event like this. So I don't know the time frames, but there's also procedures around when the large air tankers come in, and actually the smaller aircraft get out of its way when it comes in to do its large drops. So it might have been circling and just waiting for its opportunity to come in and do its either load of water or suppressant.
What's your response to the union coming out saying that they wish more career firefighters were sent from the metro down to the regions?
We just didn't see the need. Obviously, the planning was in place by the State Operations Centre in the event that we needed to call back staff. But then we can't deny the metropolitan area. We need to maintain 4 shifts in the metropolitan area and our country stations as well. So if it had got to that point, the State Operations Centre would have pushed the button on recalling staff. And it just didn't reach that point. So, we're really happy with the response. We did mobilise career staff to assist, but the firefighting effort undertaken by DBCA, local volunteers, was phenomenal.
How many crews do you have out at the moment doing those soil samplings out of the top?
I'm not sure. I think they've just commenced taking those samples, so I couldn't answer that question at this stage.
Slightly odd question, this one. It's on the importance of communication with the public during fires and the importance of AM radio. I believe AM radio is becoming increasingly less common in new cars, to the extent that it's actually being weeded out. You're only getting FM. Given that mobile towers frequently go out, is that a problem going forward?
I've just got a new vehicle and mine's got an AM. You just need to switch bands, I think. But, yeah, okay. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the vehicle manufacturers have decided to remove them, but I took mine a couple of weeks ago and just need to swich bands from FM to AM.
There's a number of models that are coming out now that don't actually have it, and that could be a concern going forward.
Yep. I'll follow that up.
Design rule, are they that compulsory?
we might need to put some
it's a bit of a strange question.
some communications on FM. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I can't answer your question.
Thanks, guys.
All right, cool. Thank you.